Welcome in, everyone, to episode 121 of the Batfoot Podcast. My name is Damon, here with David and Matt. Today, we're going to bring up some encouraging team starts or some worrying team starts. We'll go to some injuries, some other miscellaneous stuff, and then we're going to take a look at the league leaders so far as a couple weeks through the season. And then we'll jump into players of the week to wrap the show up. But before we get to all that, David, how are you doing?
Doing good. Got to go to Wrigley Field this weekend. Watch the Cubs play. That was the game they won, like 10 runs. It was a good, fun game. Nice to go in there and get some good experience at the ballpark again, and and get to see the team win. Always fun. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I have not gotten to go to the ballpark yet, but been enjoying some baseball nonetheless. And yeah, everything's been going well. I had a good week. So, Damien, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back here. Had some power issues the last time we were supposed to record, so glad to be back here. Hope everyone had a great Easter weekend. I know it was a lot of fun. I went over and hung out with my dad on Sunday and watched some baseball, watched some the NASCAR race at Bristol, and just getting ready to hang out. Can't wait for this week. I'm going actually to a Dodgers Cubs game, so be interested to see how all the rule changes and stuff look like in stadium, and we might talk about that a little later on. Once we've all kind of went and experienced it live. But, I'm excited to get to this episode. So what do you guys say? Let's get to it. So let's go ahead and start with the historic start of the Tampa Bay Rays. They are the first team to be 10-0 since 1987. And through their first 8 games, they had a positive 46 run differential. That was the best since before the 1900s. And I believe you guys couldn't say anything about it, but they're winning tonight, I believe, as well against the Red Sox, well on their way to an 11-0 start.
Yep, 6-1 right now.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible start, but we obviously noted last week kind of the schedule for the Rays early in the season. I mean, they got all these wins off of teams that weren't expected to be good. But at the same time, a start like this, I mean, you're seeing a lot of teams hovering around that 500 mark early in the season. The fact that the Rays have won this many games already and have blown out teams like this with shutout pitching from all their starters is really remarkable. And they're getting, knockout performances from Wander Franco, Brandon Lau, Randy Arozarena. Like this is a legitimate threat for the AL East in my mind. Even though they haven't, they're just playing their first games against an AL East opponent in the Red Sox this weekend.
Yeah, I think I wanted to point out the guys you mentioned, Wander Franco. I think the part of the ceiling for the Rays this year was, what are you going to get? Are you going to get like the breakout for Wander Franco, or are you going to get the good player Wander Franco we've seen the last 2 years? And I think you're starting to look like there's been some encouraging signs that he might be breaking out this year. Obviously, it's only been 2 weeks, but that he's looked really, really good at the plate. And, I think that the big thing with them is there's another level to Wander Franco and Randy Arozarena that we haven't seen before. And I think we might see it this year. Like, I don't think Randy Arozarena is going to keep up an 11% strikeout rate this year. But I think that there's a level that, we saw in the World Baseball Classic from him. He looks really, really good. And this is also a team that, they were a wild card team last year. They won a lot of games last year, and they missed Brandon Lau for most of the season. I think people forget how good he is. And I'm glad you pointed him out, because he has put up a fantastic start to the season. And, if you look back at the last few years, like in 2021, his last full season, he played 149 games. He was a 5 wins above replacement player. So this is a really good player, and they missed that last year. And this is a team that obviously the pitching is fantastic. I don't think they're as good as they've been so far. They've been playing, like you said, some weak opponents, but this is a team you're worried about the bats and how consistent they would be. And if you get that extra level out of Franco and Rosarina, and you get the healthy season from Brandon Lau back to form, you've got a pretty nasty 1-2-3 punch. You can put in a few of the really good role players like Yandy Diaz and Isaac Paredes with those guys, and you've got a good offense there too. So the pitching is great. The offense is great. They play great defense. The just run prevention in general is fantastic for them. And I know that I don't think we mentioned it, but I heard today, I saw a tweet. I think they're calling up Taj Bradley, who's like a top 40 prospect too. So they're about to get even deeper in the pitching rotation right now. And I don't think it's out of a necessity that they have to call him up. Like, I think Zach Eflin might be hitting the IL, but like, still, they've got plenty of starters at the big league level already, or close to it. So I think they must feel really good about Taj Bradley to bring him on up. So great start for the Rays. And, I think it changes my opinion of them a little bit. You've already got some wins in the bag there. And the fact of the matter is that even though this is only the first 11 games and it's a long season, those wins still do count. And when you have a 4-game lead, you got a 4-game head start. So it's nice to see that for them. And I like this team. They've looked really good so far. So I think they're maybe a little better than I expected them to be coming into the year.
Yeah, for a team that all three of us had finishing third in this division, and we expected it to be a dogfight division where every game's going to matter, beating the teams that you're supposed to beat and doing it handedly, even if the Yankees or the Blue Jays, if they have to face the same amount of teams, what are the odds that they're going 11-0 against them as well? Like, even if they drop 2 or 3 of those games, that still matters a lot at the end of the season. So the Rays being able to do this, we say all the time, like, the Rays are always going to surprise us. They're always going to make us look like fools. They're pretty much doing it right now. I mean, the way that this pitching staff has looked, I know it's against the weak competition, but you've had McClanahan's had 2 starts and hasn't given up hardly anything. Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen, and their 2 starts have been literally scoreless in each of them. Eflin looked pretty solid, but now they're calling up a top 40 prospect in Taj Bradley to add to that rotation as well. And when Eflin gets back, that just deepens the starting rotation even more at the moment. And the bullpen's been lights out all year as well. I mean, out of they have 4 guys have given up runs in the bullpen, and the other ones have been scoreless so far. This team's just fundamentally good all the way around, and they're getting their performances from the guys like Brandon Lau, who was an injury concern coming into the year. Wander Franco, we were looking for the breakout. We all saw what Randy is. We all know what he is, especially through the WBC, but he's playing up to that level. I mean, Josh Lowe has been good for them as well, who's had question marks. Manny Margot, he's coming back off an injury-riddled season. He's looked good. Like, this team's getting top-level performances from every single position at the moment.
Yeah, it's good. You were absolutely right, by the way. And that's kind of what we said in our preview show was, we got all these previews, we agreed on a bunch of stuff, but at the end of the day, there are going to be teams that surprise.
Yeah, they are. So another, performance that has been really, really, I wouldn't say good to see, because it's been a lot against my team to start the season, but it's been the Arizona Diamondbacks. We talked about them. There was going to be the 1 and 2 in that division. It was going to be the Padres and it was going to be the Dodgers. And then the third team was going to be a battle between the Giants and the Diamondbacks. Well, the Diamondbacks have started off their season against the Dodgers, the Padres, the Dodgers, and then 1 game against the Brewers. They're 6-4. In LA, they had a 4-game series against the Dodgers, split 2 of those, went to San Diego, split that series in San Diego. And then against the Dodgers on a 4-game weekend series, took 3 out of 4 there. And those last couple games, they took very, very handedly. And then Zach Gallen looked amazing last night. I think struck out like 11 Brewers in 6 innings or something. Like, this team is, if they're going to keep getting this production, and a lot of it was with 2 outs even. They're a team that's really pesky and hasn't been going away, but they're off to that 6-4 start, and with 5 of the wins coming against LA. And
yeah, I guess I can start with this one. I like what the Diamondbacks have done, and they've gotten some good contributions from guys. Like, I think that you look at you look at Evan Longoria as a guy who's had a really good start to the season, and he's a guy that he's been banged up so much last few years, but I think we kind of talked about in our preview shows that there might still be a little bit in the tank talent wise there after because when he was playing he was not really that bad the last couple of years. It's just been not being able to stay healthy, and if he's able to put up a healthy season, I know he's 37, but he could put up an okay season and help that team. And you look at a guy like you look at Corbin Carroll has been really solid to start the year. That plate he hadn't been great, but man, he's been a terror on the base paths like we've talked about. Already has 5 stolen bases. I don't know if I fully believe in this start as much as I do the Rays start, but going up against the Dodgers and putting some wins in the bank there is a really good start for them. And I like what I've seen from them for the most part. I think they're a team that definitely is on the rise, and some of the guys that they've started off that haven't been fantastic yet are guys that you're not really all that worried about. Like you feel like Ketel Marte is going to be at least decent. You feel like Lourdes Gurriel is not going to be this bad. They've both had really rough starts. Christian Walker as well. Like those guys are going to end up being pretty good. So I think that this is definitely a team to look out for, and putting those wins in the bank is really nice for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, I didn't have it muted, but yeah, I agree. This team needs big performances from their pitching, I think, to be able to keep up in that division. But they've been getting them so far, and they do have Brandon Pfaadt and Dre
Yep.
Jameson and some of those guys coming up. So um, it's not unheard of to think that this team has big steps that can be taken as we go forward. Especially at the trade deadline, because you look ahead, if this team can stay in it, right, there's going to be good starters on the market. I think that's
Yep.
evidently clear from some of the early struggles and some of the teams that are kind of falling down the order. Just the way the White Sox have been playing, like I'm genuinely thinking that you'll have some of those White Sox starters, because Giolito's on like a contract year. The way the White Sox have been playing just screams to me that they'll end up trying to get rid of one or two of those starters at the deadline for something. A team like the Diamondbacks can pick up a starter like that and really cement their rotation.
It is the White Sox though, which is kind of like the central version of the Rockies. So I
Right.
mean, but
They
No, but
never know what they're going to do.
yeah,
Arizona's never been a team that's been afraid to make a move if they
Yeah.
needed to. Like
Mhm.
what was
Oh,
it?
yeah.
2017 when they got JD
yeah,
Yep,
at the
JD.
deadline? Martinez, yeah.
and look
And
no further than
Greinke.
signing. I was gonna say signing Zach Greinke. I
Yeah.
mean,
I was
and-
just
Yep.
specifically saying like
Yeah.
at the deadline to
I
make
mean,
the move at that point.
yeah, it was a terrible
Um,
signing, but signing Madison Bumgarner.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Diamondbacks like to go for it,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't be surprised. They
And-
have a lot of prospect currency right now with
Yeah.
Drew Jones down there. You won't trade Drew Jones, but they got a bunch of outfielders, like young outfielders in AAA.
Yeah. And the fact also, they were in on Xander Bogaerts a little bit in the offseason too. They talked
Yeah.
to him, and I think they might have talked to Dansby Swanson a little bit too before they decided to ride with what they had. But definitely a team that might be interesting if they're still in it come deadline time.
Yeah, and they were in on Trevor Story the year before too. Well,
Yeah.
It doesn't get talked about a lot either. But anyways, another team that's been off to an I shouldn't even say team. It's just players, really. The Pittsburgh Fighting Brian Reynolds are off to a 6-4 start. Against Cincinnati, Boston, the White Sox, they lost against Houston last night, but I think they're leading right now. But it is still encouraging to see them at 6-4. It really has been that's basically the Brian Reynolds show. He's just telling them, pay me everything I want, give me my damn opt out. But still, it's still fun to see a team like the Pirates, even if it is against some weaker opponents to start the year, still over 500 playing solid baseball.
Yeah, I mean, none of us picked that. We were like thinking the Pirates might be the seller, or they might be better than the Reds. They're already over 500, and like we said, these wins early on, they matter. They matter for player morale. They matter for creating that culture that believes that they can win. And the Pirates have a lot of like useful players, but if you get some over performances from guys like Brian Reynolds, I think that's a team that can. The NL Central kind of looks. We'll get to the next team. NL Central kind of looks pretty open for the Cubs, the Pirates, the Brewers, all of them. Kind of, you got to step on the gas every game. Very important for all these teams.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Andrew McCutcheon's been playing really well so far too.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a great
Came,
start and had his first home run at back at PNC Park. That was a really cool scene with him being back there, for the first time as a Pirate, and ever since he left, like was it 2016 that he left in the trade
Yeah,
to the
for
Giants,
Brian
but
Reynolds,
for Brian
actually.
Reynolds, yeah. So definitely cool to see him out there. Unfortunately, we'll talk about a certain guy that got injured here later
Yeah,
on. But and then, hey, pitching wise, David Bednar has a negative .1 FIP.
yeah, he's
So
good. He's real
he is,
good.
and he was good last year too. But Mitch Keller's been really good too. He's had some, his control hadn't been great, but he's looked pretty solid. And they have some sneaky like Roansy Contreras. They have some sneaky pitching there too that may not be top of the line yet, but they have some talent in that rotation. I don't think they have any future aces there, but they've got a few guys that are at least interesting. So
absolutely. Well, let's stay in the NL Central and let's go from the good talk to the bad talk, as David won't say because he absolutely hates this team. But
True.
the St. Louis Cardinals have had some pretty interesting development slash drama happen over the past week or so.
Yeah, and maybe Matt can fill me in here. So Tyler O'Neill got waived from, I believe it was from second, like on a single,
Yeah.
and the third base coach waves Tyler O'Neill in. O'Neill gets thrown out at the plate. Pretty clearly, it was a bad send. I mean, you look at where the ball was hit; it was pretty soft. Fielder fielded it almost immediately, threw him out at the plate. I, you
yeah.
know, and then yeah, pick up from here, Matt. What happened after that?
So basically, they sent Tyler O'Neill. Like you said, it was probably a bad send, especially when it was Acuna throwing, who's got one of the strongest arms in baseball, and they sent him, and he was thrown out by a pretty good amount, but he wasn't really like he was. I wouldn't say he was lollygagging, but he wasn't really like just all out hustling. And anyways, after the game, it might be something where you kind of tell him, hey, you really need to go harder there, like type thing with have a conversation with the manager. But instead, the manager Oli Marmol calls him out after the game in the presser, says he wasn't hustling, and then he benched him the next day. And it just caused a lot of drama because that doesn't need to come out in the public. He doesn't need to be benched, and it's a situation where like and the Cardinals were just really struggling, and it just adds bad vibes to the team. And I think Oli Marmol is a young manager. He hasn't been a manager very long, and I think it's just a mistake by him. And he's really feels like he's kind of losing the clubhouse a little bit. But that team's got a lot of issues, and they're not just Tyler O'Neill, and that I think that he needs to they making that clubhouse worse is not going to help that team at all. So I think definitely it's definitely some unnecessary drama early, and I mean there's even rumors about like the Cardinals are going to trade him now, like that kind of rumor, which is kind of crazy to me. I
That's
mean they do have some extra outfielders and they really need pitching, so I get that. Like, I mean, they've got like six outfielders and they have no pitching. So, I mean, that would make sense to trade him from a baseball standpoint, honestly. So maybe Ollie Marmol was trying to get him to trade him. I don't know, but it was a very weird and dramatic situation that was kind of unnecessary.
and the next night. I think it was Paul Goldschmidt got thrown out by the same
He
distance,
got thrown out
like
by
or
like
worse,
it was like
right?
he was halfway. He was halfway between third and home, and the catcher already had the ball. I mean, it
Like
was not even close.
you would never put that on Paul Goldschmidt, right? Like
No.
Paul Goldschmidt, MVP last year, like you would never put that on him.
Yeah.
So because Tyler O'Neill, who was struggled last year, who's bad, like because
It,
he's a young player who's easy to point fingers at, right? You're not pointing fingers at the third base coach who clearly had another bad send, that same series. Like it's why are we, putting the
yeah.
blame on Tyler O'Neill for this? It's pretty clearly a problem in that St. Louis clubhouse right now, and it's reflected in their record. I mean, they're 3-7, bottom of the NL Central right now.
Yeah. Well, I would say that he was I would say that Tyler O'Neill would have beat that out if he had been really hustling. I mean, he's a fast runner. If he was really hustling, it was not a. The Goldschmidt sin was like one of the worst sins I've ever seen. I couldn't believe they sent him. Like, it was just a gift to the Braves to get that out. But the Tyler O'Neill one, that he really could have beat that play out if he was really going hard. But it wasn't like he was just kind of slowly jogging or something. Like, he was running. He just wasn't like running at his full. And he's also a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries too the last couple of years. So, I mean, I don't fully fault the third base coach for that one, but it was definitely one that it was definitely a situation where it was totally unnecessary to bench him and to go in the media. And because, I mean, we've never really seen that type of thing from him. Like, it hadn't really been a problem. So, that just not hustling. Like, he seems like the type of guy that hustles all the time. Yeah, that's kind of the reason he's been good in the past. So, I don't know. It's definitely a weird situation there for sure.
Yeah, it is just the weird how they all basically just attacked him for it for some reason.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if there's something else behind the scenes with Tyler O'Neill in that clubhouse or something, but who the hell knows?
Yeah.
The Cardinals are always weird about the Cardinal way or whatever. So
yeah, they're also weird about not getting pitching when they don't have any.
That's true. That's true. Alrighty, well, let's jump over to the injury segment. They got a handful of ones that are bad, and then we'll give you a couple injury updates at the back end of it. But the big one that happened, it was on Sunday. It was regarding the Pittsburgh Pirates. Matt mentioned it or hinted at it a little bit earlier. But Oneil Cruz got into a collision at the plate, ended up fracturing, I believe it was his left ankle, had to undergo surgery, and he's going to be out for 4+ months, it seems like.
Yeah, that's huge for the Pirates. Kind of to put us a downer on what we just talked about. But there was a big moment at home plate too, with the White Sox catcher looking like he was talking to him, and the benches clearing brawl. But I think the bigger worry for sure was Oneil Cruz's leg and how that might affect his athleticism down the road, and just whether or not he's going to be able to get back to it. I mean, they said like 4 months, said the Pirates Twitter, and that's most of the season. So that's not the way you want to the season to go for the Pirates. They do have Ji-Hwan Bae, who looks pretty good right now. He can probably step in and play some shortstop. So we'll see, but that definitely turns that Pirates hope kind of sour for sure.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Oneil Cruz had seemed to be making some adjustments at the plate. His chase rates were down a little bit. He was making a little bit better contact, so it was nice to see that. Obviously, this early, it's going to be tough to see, like, his overall numbers and what they look like in the first 9 games, if that's a good sign going forward. But just some of those other numbers can stabilize a little bit quicker, and there's some good signs starting up for him, and it's really a shame to see that this early. And like you say, I mean, it hurts the Pirates a lot, and I don't know what type of leg injury it was. I know it's a fracture, obviously, but I don't know which bone or how bad it was or whatever. Obviously, it's going to take him out for a while, but it kind of sucks to it sucks to see. And I don't know if I kind of doubt his his athleticism and stuff, but you never know. He's a big guy, and it's hard for big guys sometimes when they have those leg injuries. So I think I think it's tough. I thought that the play at the plate, it was kind of a weird, like, it was a weird play at the plate, I guess, where he was kind of in between whether he should slide or go in and try to take the catcher out, and he kind of, like, it was just weird. And then he, I thought it was uncalled for, the Sebi Zavala yelling at him after it happened. I mean, I know he knew he was laying on the ground, but, like, why are you getting up and yelling at him while he's after a collision? I mean, that's part of baseball. So I didn't like that too much. And then of course, when the Pirates see their star, phenom get laid on the ground with a broken leg, and the other team's catcher yelling at him, they're going to come out and start a brawl. And so I think that was kind of a little bit unnecessary, but I definitely think I definitely hate it for the Pirates, and I hate it for Oneil Cruz. Hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he comes back better than ever. So
Yeah, it loses one of the young, fun players to watch in the game. So that really does suck. We've seen an influx of young talent this year, so we'll talk about a little bit more of those. But you never like losing a guy like O'Neal Cruz, especially for a team like the Pirates, who he was going to be one of the main reasons people go out to the ballpark this year. But staying with the White Sox side of it, they have now also lost their starting shortstop for a few weeks as Tim Anderson has a strained left knee. It was a weird play on Monday in a rundown. They were kind of trying to run the guy between second and third, and basically Hanser tried to tag the guy, missed the tag, tried to turn around and throw it to Anderson as the runner was running basically into Anderson. And he tried to go down, landed awkwardly on his knee, stayed in the game for the rest of it, but had I think an MRI or something yesterday afterwards, and basically went on the IL today, and he's out for 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's tough. This seems like something that, obviously this was kind of a collision play. I was watching that game, but, it seems like Tim Anderson's good for missing a couple weeks every year. He kind of 123 games in 2019, 2021. Last year he played 79 games, so he is a guy who's dealt with injuries at times. He's a really good player when he's out there, so hopefully he comes back healthy. But I don't think it's something that's going to keep him out, for a super long time.
Yeah, and I think they're just getting Eloy back from injury as well. So, you're looking at a team that's already dealt with a number of injuries. It's not a good start. It's not the kind of thing you want to see from a team that both, we saw like we mentioned, the Sevi Zavala thing, and then, they're getting into brawls, and you've got guys getting hurt, and as soon as one gets hurt, the other one's out, and the White Sox have been this tantalizing team. We talked about it in the preview show. They got so much talent, and losing Tim Anderson, who's just another one of those really talented, high level players, just makes it that much harder for them to catch the Twins and the Guardians in the Central.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about the Rays there, but they did lose Zach Eflin to lower back stiffness. It does sound like he's going to miss at least 2 starts, and then they'll possibly see where he's going to go from there. They did call up Taj Bradley to fill in for that spot, but one of the Rays' better pitchers going down for at least a couple weeks.
Yeah, Zach Eflin was actually the biggest free agent signing in Rays history this past year, and he looked pretty good to start the season. And it sucks to see him. It sucks to see him get hurt this early, but it sounds like it's not a very big long-term type injury. So I think, I think that obviously you would like to see him healthy this early in the season, but I think hopefully he can come back, in the next few weeks. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So another big injury that we had happen was Adam Duvall fractured his wrist. I didn't quite see how this one happened, so if you guys do, let me know. But he had been one of the best players in baseball so far, especially for that Red Sox team. But he's going to miss about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's huge, and he was Matt's Player of the Week last week. So
Yeah,
a tough break. He was leading the league in WAR. 514 on base, 455 average, 4 homers, 14 RBIs to start the year. Just a monster opening week for Adam Duvall, and got hit on the hand. What are you going to do? There's nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
Just a fluke thing, tough break. He was really the Red Sox entire offense right now. I mean, Rafael Devers had a few homers, but Duvall was doing it all. What a huge signing for them. Then just you hate to see it go awry so fast.
I think Ryan McKenna was a pretty big part of that offense too.
Yeah, which hand did he break? Did y'all see?
I think it was his left.
Yeah,
same one he broke last year.
Yeah,
because I think if he got hit by it, I would assume it was his left.
Yeah,
that's usually the one.
Yeah, I just found it. It was his left wrist, and I think that's the same one he broke last year that put him out for the season. So that's definitely troubling. But maybe it might be a different bone or something. But definitely sucks to see. He was playing so well for them, and Adam Duvall is the type of guy who he will go on a tear for like 2 weeks, and then he will be awful at the plate for 3 weeks. So it probably wasn't going to last. But man, it sucks to see him get hurt. I really like him. He's a fun player. And he's a great guy. Everyone's talked about how great he was in the Braves clubhouse last year, and I'm sure he was going to be the same guy for the Red Sox. And they really couldn't afford another outfield injury too. I mean, they've got that he was playing center field for them, and they really don't have many guys that can play center field. So definitely sucks to see, but hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he comes back at some point later in the year, I guess. I don't know what his timetable is, but definitely sucks to see.
Yeah. Another one that happened just a little bit before we went on the show. We didn't have much information on the severity of it, but Brandon Woodruff, one of the big starters for the Milwaukee Brewers, got placed on the IL with shoulder inflammation. You never like seeing shoulder or forearm when it comes to pitchers, especially on their pitching side. Inflammation's never a good thing. So don't quite know the severity of it and how long it'll be out, but the inflammation on the shoulder or elbow is never a good thing when you're talking about pitchers.
I'll take this one as Matt. We got a Brave segment coming up, but Brandon, we talked about in our Brewers preview that the pitching for the Brewers was going to determine whether or not that team could carry to the playoffs or would end up being a disappointment, right? Well, early on, the pitching has been great, but the big worry with those power arms is going to be that those little twingy inflammation style injuries that nag at guys like Brandon Woodruff all season that end up hurting their chances. And Burns is off to a little bit of a rough start. Woodruff had been off to a really strong start. So you wonder if the Brewers are going to be able to kind of weather this storm. But on the other hand, their offense has been incredible thus far. I mean, you've seen Ryan Anderson, Joey Weimer. They've had really, really strong offensive performances, kind of supplanting the need for that starting pitching early on. Hence, they're leading the NL Central right now. So the Brewers maybe can sponge losing out one Brandon Woodruff for a while, but because that offense has been better than we kind of thought originally, but that's not what you want to see at all in terms of having picked been the one guy in the pod who's picked the Brewers. I needed Brandon Woodruff healthy the whole season in order to be right there.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing to it. I think it just depends on how long this lasts, because it sounds like Craig Counsell said they think it's going to be a minimum stay on the IL, but you never know with shoulders. I've been watching baseball a while now, and it seems like every time someone has a shoulder injury, they say it's going to be minimum, and then some of them are minimum, and then some of them are like 4 months and he's still not back. So you just never really know. But hopefully Brandon Woodruff comes back pretty soon, because the Brewers have been fun to watch so far this year.
Yeah, so before we jump to that Brave segment, baseball has been absolutely wild tonight. So while we were talking about it, well, you could say that one, but the Orioles and A's have now come back, and it's tied 7-7. The Pittsburgh Pirates, as you were just talking about him, David Bednar blew the save against the Astros, and then Ji-Hwan Bae hit a 3-run walk-off homer off Ryan Presley. And then the Cubs were down 7-0. And then what happened, David?
Oh my God, dude. So I had turned the game off at 7-0, and I was like, you know what? I'll turn it back on for Cody Bellinger's at bat. Hit a single, and then the Cubs loaded the bases, and then I think Bellinger got hit in by Mancini, and they loaded the bases, and then Nelson Velasquez hit a go-ahead grand slam. Ian Happ just hit another RBI double. Cubs are up 9-7. They were down 7-0 a half inning ago. So that's what's going on over there. I'm having a good night.
Yeah.
And the Orioles just took the lead against the A's. Now it's 8-7.
And you're just talking about the Pirates walking off, and we were just talking about Bay, Ji-Hwan Bae.
Ji-Hwan Bae,
walk-off homer. So
yeah, he's been good. Yeah, and like I said, every game matters, man. It is seriously, you gotta pile up these early wins. You can't give up 7-0. Who cares? Keep playing. What if something happens? What if the ball goes out like it has been for the Cubs tonight?
And you know what the craziest result of all is? The fact that the Marlins have put up 7 runs in a game.
Yeah, kind of had to after Sandy gave up like 15 yesterday.
Yeah, and they were facing Nola, so.
Anyways, so that's what's been happening in baseball. Live updates, I think, for the second time on this show or whatever, but it's been crazy. So Matt, let's get to the Atlanta Braves injury segment, and we'll just go ahead and let you take off on this because you ran it down pre-show, and there's a lot here.
Yeah, so the Braves, for an early season, have been ravished by injuries so far. They started the season with Kyle Wright on the IL. Max Fried went down on opening day. We talked about that last week. But in this past week, you've had Michael Harris go on the IL with, I think it was some kind of like lower back strain type thing. And
Yeah.
then you had Colin McHugh go on the IL with shoulder discomfort. You have Travis d'Arnaud has a concussion from a collision at the plate. We talked about collisions at the plate just a few minutes ago with O'Neal Cruz, and the same thing happened to d'Arnaud, except he's got a concussion, which it's really worrisome, honestly, with him, because I think he had a lot of concussions back in his days with the Mets. That was something he dealt with, so hopefully he's back soon. But there's been a lot of injuries for the Braves. Rizal Iglesias is still in the IL. He apparently has started throwing, but Kyle Wright came back tonight, didn't look very good. But there's a lot of injuries for the Braves. The good news is that it seems like most of the guys who have been at the big league level so far this year are not long-term injuries, but there is one long-term injury that we found out today, and that is that Ian Anderson is going to have Tommy John surgery. And man, I hate to see that, because he had really been struggling. He was awful in the big leagues last year, went down to AAA and was bad. And this spring, there had been a lot of talk about how he had great off-season progression, and he was working on developing a slider, and he was really bad during the spring, could not throw strikes. Went to AAA, his first start in AAA, gave up like 6 runs without recording an out in the first inning, and they pulled him. And then I think it was after that start, he said he started feeling elbow discomfort and went on the IL with a elbow injury, and they found out it's going to be Tommy John surgery. I don't think it was causing his struggles, but I think that there might be maybe something in his mechanics that was off that was causing his struggles, might have caused the elbow injury. I think it's possible, but he's always had a little bit of a funky arm action, so really hate to see that. And I said in our group thing earlier when it was sent, I said, man, I really struggle to see him making it back to the big leagues. I really hope I'm wrong about that, but I really, really am I really, really hope he comes back and is healthy again. But man, it really sucks to see. So Tommy John surgery for Ian Anderson, but hopefully wish him the best, and hopefully the rest of the Braves are able to get healthy. I know it seems like it might be a couple more weeks, but they might be able to get back to full health. So
Everything that's happening. Mountcastle's hit a grand slam. Today is just insane.
Oh yeah, love baseball.
Yeah, it's a lot of big injuries there for the Braves.
Wait, Luis Arias hit for the cycle?
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I'm not surprised he got a triple, a double, and a single. I'm very surprised he got a home run.
Well, some things happen, but yeah, I mean, a lot of big injuries for the Braves there. You need to get that pitching staff figured out. Ian Anderson might have been somebody to come back up, but now he's going to be out for the year. Michael Harris, you need him back soon. So big injury news on the Braves there, and we'll keep updated on what's happening there. But a couple updates on players who are making their way back. First off, just a little short one. We kind of mentioned it on the Tim Anderson thing. Looks like Eloy Jimenez, when he was first placed on the IL, I think on the 5th, it was said that he was going to miss like 3+ weeks. Looks like he could make his return this weekend, possibly. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But a couple big ones. Seiya Suzuki, who had an oblique strain in spring training. He's making progress and looks like he could be back this week or the weekend. David, I know you were talking about that.
Yeah, Say is on track to come back this weekend against the Dodgers. Should be back in right field. The Cubs have been kind of going without a right fielder. Called up Nelson Velasquez. Made a grand slam today, so whoops. But yeah, when Seiya gets back, I think that should kind of cement their plans in right field. He's been getting hits in Iowa. I think he hit second tonight, and he's already been on base a couple times. So yeah, he should be good to go, good to start for the season. And we talked about him a bunch in our prediction show for the Cubs. So it'd be good to have Seiya back finally.
Yeah, it really will be. He's a player that lineup could really use right now. But the big one is Bryce Harper. We kind of all scratched our heads when the Phillies decided not to put him on the 60-day IL. It was kind of assumed that he was going to be out until the All-Star break. And as of today, he's been cleared to start hitting in live game action. Still no timeline for his actual return, but that's a massive, massive step. He could potentially be back DHing in just a couple weeks. The Phillies are still kind of worried about him having to run the bases with the elbow and sliding, and anything that can impact that could happen there and potentially jeopardize it. So they'll still probably hold him out for a while. But a guy who we were expecting to return in the middle of July, I mean, we could be even a month away, getting a couple extra months of Bryce Harper than the Phillies expected. And them losing Rhys Hoskins and them having kind of struggled to begin the season. He's a guy that they really, really need to get back and play at that MVP level. So it's a good sign that he's making improvements to where, he could return a lot earlier than most people expected.
Yeah, the Phillies really need Bryce Harper back, and obviously for his talents, but they kind of need a spark too. They've looked awful so far this year, and the pitching staff's been really rough. So they need to get something. They need some kind of spark to get going, and he might be the guy that comes back. He's definitely the type of clubhouse guy, and just the
He's a leader.
superstar type. Yeah, he's the superstar leader type that can get your team going when he comes back. So we'll see if that happens. But they've been really rough so far, and they need Bryce Harper back. And we'll see. And you mentioned the Rhys Hoskins injury. They also lost Derek Hall, who is the replacement for Rhys Hoskins. So
Yeah.
they're down two guys that are obviously they have like their entire team is DHs, but they've lost two DHs, so they need Bryce Harper to get back to hit. So.
Absolutely. So I think that's going to wrap up the sad part of our injury riddled show so far, but let's go ahead and jump over to kind of some just the young players of the segment or of the show. But we had a couple big call-ups this week. Grayson Rodriguez was, I think, the number 2 or 3 prospect in baseball, got called up. And then Francisco Alvarez, which is right up there at the top of the list as well, got called up from the Mets, who are dealing with Omar Narvaez being out for a couple months. But a couple top prospects. We already seen Anthony Volpe, Jordan Walker, Corbin Carroll obviously got a little bit of run last year, but now 2 big names in Grayson Rodriguez and Francisco Alvarez up in the majors.
Yeah, and Grayson pitched tonight and ended up giving up a bunch of runs. But I think, with a lot of these young pitchers, you're going to see some growing pains. And it'll take them a little bit to get worked into their rhythm. I don't think we see very often guys with, Grayson's got a lot of really nasty stuff. Commanding that stuff is against major league hitters without making the mistakes that give up the runs, even against the Oakland A's. It's all about experience, and it's all about learning what you can and can't do. And Grayson's going to be fine. He had a really good start, honestly, against the Rangers. Shaky first inning, got settled in, ended up going 5 innings. He looked really good. So my vision going forward is that he'll be totally fine. And Hayden Wesneski's another one tonight, had a really rough outing, but I think these young pitchers, we're seeing these guys, getting to the major leagues, finding it's not all cake, and they're going to have to go through some of those early struggles. Development isn't always linear. So Grayson's just hitting that early rough patch, but I think he'll be okay.
Hit on for Alvarez.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention on Grayson real quick. He got left in the minors to start the season, and I think the Orioles were kind of hoping he would settle in a little bit and kind of get really get on a roll. He missed a lot of last year. He hadn't spent a ton of time at AAA yet, and I think they were kind of hoping he'd get a few starts there, and then they kind of needed him when Kyle Bradish went down. So, I think they might not have been loved when they had to call him up, and he hasn't looked great. He looked pretty good in his first start. The start tonight against a bad team, he got lit up a little bit. His control wasn't great, so hopefully he can kind of get rolling at some point. I do think he's still kind of getting used to it, getting used to pitching at the big league level. So
yeah, and as for Alvarez, I mean, he's probably not even going to have the main catching job for the Mets right now. I think it'll mostly be Nido. Alvarez may get some DH starts, but I think they just want him to get going. Otherwise, they would have not signed Narvaez this offseason and gone with Alvarez to start the year had they kind of believed in him as the starting catcher this season. So
yeah, the Mets, I think if they really need to play Francisco Alvarez every day right now, because you do not want to waste the guy's development time by sticking him up at the big league level as the backup catcher to Thomas Nido while Narvaez is out for 2 months and to just miss 2 months of consistent plate appearances. Like, he needs to either be starting every day in AAA, or even if you don't catch him every day, he needs to catch or DH, at a regular level. I mean, at least like 5 or 6 times a week, and not just come up and sit on the bench for 6 games until you need him to catch a day game after a night game or something. So I don't. We'll see how they manage that. But Francisco Alvarez does definitely have the talent to be a really good player. And if you had bet me that he would be called up before Brett Beatty, then I would be shocked, because Brett Beatty has been tearing up AAA. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But definitely, definitely he's a guy who, I think they need to kind of get consistent plate appearances for.
Brett Beatty will probably be called up
Yeah.
soon, but he's been dealing with thumb inflammation from, I think he had surgery in the offseason on his thumb.
Gotcha.
And he has been dealing with some like inflammation / still a little bit of pain in there. He's still been playing really well, but I know he was out for a few days. So I would assume that's also another reason why quite there. But another one of the young guys which we talked about is Jordan Walker. We talked about him getting called up, getting the big run he had a massive spring. Well, all he's done is hitting 10 straight so far to start his career in the majors.
Yeah, I can start with this because, believe it or not, I've watched the Cardinals more than David has, probably, because they've played my team. But Jordan Walker's
That's correct.
Jordan Walker's looked really good. He's hit the ball really, really hard, and that's what he's done for his entire minor league career, and that's what he started off doing at the big league level. Skipped AAA, and I think that there's some things that he's going to have to work on. He's definitely still a work in progress. Like, he's defensively just not even like in the ballpark, but this is like his first games ever playing outfield. And, he's also kind of, his approach at the plate, he's still going to have to learn there. But, he definitely seems to be a guy who can contribute as a hitter at the big league level early. And he's looked pretty good so far. A 342 average in his first 10 games, 390 on base, and a 553 slugging. And his first home run against the Braves the other day, it was an absolute missile on a line to left field. So I think the guy is going to be a really solid player at the big league level. But we'll see. We'll see how he progresses this year. Definitely going to have to, start getting a little bit more disciplined at the plate and keep working on that outfield defense.
Yeah, he really will. But it's been good to see the rookies come up and actually have a good time so far. But let's go ahead and look over at kind of just the league leaders through the first couple weeks of the season. It's always fun just to look at kind of people who have performed well before the talent levels of the people who are usually up there kind of take over and do the normal thing that they do. But looking at the league leaders so far, I mean, we just talked about him a little bit with the cycle here, but Luis Arias is leading the league in average and on base percentage. Adam Duvall is leading the league in slugging percentage. Brian Reynolds and Pete Alonso are tied for homers. They're at 5 each. Jordan is leading in the RBIs at 16, and then Miles Straw is actually leading the majors in stolen bases at 6 so far.
That's 6 stolen bases in 11 games, too. I mean, that's almost, he's got a pace for a lot of stolen bases, and there's a bunch of guys at like 5 right behind him, too. Yeah. I mean, the stolen base is definitely up, kind of as I thought. I don't know if it's as high as I thought it would be, but it is up, and you're going to see guys, I think, taking advantage of that more and more as we go throughout the season this year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, there's a few of these guys on here you could absolutely see them going like basically wire to wire. Like, I could definitely see Arias winning the batting title in the National League. I don't know about on base, but batting title average for sure. Like, home runs, I would not be surprised at all if Pete Alonso was the home run champion in the National League, especially with Harper not playing for a while, and then Jordan obviously for RBIs. And I wouldn't be shocked if Miles Straw was a stolen base leader, because he's really, really fast, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get on base enough to do it, but he's got a lot of speed. He's always been a good base stealer, so definitely interesting start. Arias now is hitting 537 after tonight, He is 4 for 5 with obviously hit for the cycle, which I don't know if it's more surprising that I don't know which home run was more surprising, him or John Verdi also homered tonight. So speaking of former stolen base champs, John Verdi I think he was the leader in stolen bases last year in the National League, which is kind of interesting. But definitely an interesting start, and we'll see if some of these guys can keep it going. I mean, I guess Duval will stay up there all year because he probably unfortunately won't be playing. But
we'll stick to qualified hitters, so Duval
yeah,
will fall off. But
that's true.
yeah,
Yeah, but I really hate that. Like I say, he was having such a great start. Sucks to see, but anyway, so definitely interesting start. So
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see. The stolen bases have picked up definitely. Brian Reynolds leading that with 5 homers, especially after all the turmoil. Sometimes that breaks people down. Sometimes it makes them play even better, and it seems like it's made him play even better. And then Arias, we always knew he was good, and we didn't factor that he'd be bad after going to the Marlins, but still been off to a surprising start, which it's their first cycle in team history, by the way.
yeah, I
think
did see that. That was interesting.
Something they've had 548 different players play for them, and nobody's hit a cycle so far. He's been a Marlin for 12 games and has a cycle.
And you would think like they've had so many players that you would think Hanley Ramirez or
Yeah.
Jose Reyes would hit for a cycle at some point. Like they've had those guys playing for them. So
yeah, it's been shocking. But let's go ahead and jump over to Player of the Week and wrap this episode up. So past years we've done a hitter and a pitcher. This year we're just going to go to one player per. So David, who do you have for your player this week?
Yeah, I've got Chris Bubich from the Royals. He was not good last year, right? I mean, that's a guy who really struggled. But coming out, he looked better, and he has been walking absolutely no one. He's sitting on, I want to say he had a 1.64 ERA, so he gave up, I think, 1 run in 11 innings or 2 runs in 11 innings pitched this last week. A lot of strikeouts, no walks, right? I mean, this is a guy who really needed a good performance and a good season to get going, I think, and to help this Royals team. The Royals have been, they've had a lot of young pitching come up in the last couple of years and had very little success with it. I mean, you think about Brady Singer, Kowar, Bubich is another one. Like they just haven't been able to develop that pitching. Remember they drafted Asa Lacy. He hasn't been good, right? They've had problems with their pitching development. To see a big step forward in the stuff, the pitching velocity, just the command of Chris Bubich is good. And maybe it's a flash in the pan, right? Might be a fluke. Obviously it's just 2 starts, but it's really impressive to see, and definitely worthy of earning like a player of the week. And we get a chance to talk about a guy who hasn't really done anything noteworthy of it in his career so far. So hopefully it continues.
Yeah, my player of the week, Bubich that's a good pick, and I will say there did an article in Fangraphs today about how much his stuff had picked up this year, so maybe he'll be able to sustain some level of it. But my player of the week, I went with Hunter Renfroe. He's homered on 3 straight days. This week he hit 409 with a 480 on base and 909 slugging. Hunter Renfroe is a guy that, we talked about before the season, the Angels, or in the offseason, the Angels really needed to add players around Trout and Ohtani, as everyone talks about, and that they just have never seemed to be able to find like a solid group of role players to be on that team with their superstars. And Hunter Renfroe is one of those types of guys. Like, if he has a good year, like, he could really help that team. And I think that so far he's been paying off in his last 6 games. Obviously those 3 home runs. I mean, the Angels have looked a little bit better maybe, but they've also had some issues. They're 5-5, I think. The bullpen's blown up a couple times. Like, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag from them, but definitely a team that definitely, they need Hunter Renfroe to have a good year, and he's off to a good start. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, Hunter Renfroe, aka like Mike Trout, aka like Tim Salmon, they all look the same.
They do.
Maybe he just got confused on who he actually is this year so far. But for my player this week, I went with Garrett Mitchell. A lot of other players probably had better weeks, but Mitchell's been a guy I've talked about a lot on here, and he had a couple homers off Max Scherzer to lead the Brewers to a win, and then pinch hit. I think it was the next day, and hit a walk-off homer. I believe it was against Ottavino.
Yep.
To lead them to victory that day. So had 3 homers with 6 RBIs. He's still striking out a lot, but a 300 average. Just somebody that, since I had talked about him a lot, and he's been pretty good to start the year off so far, I wanted to give him a shout out for player of the week here. But a lot of other guys could have easily been on here. Duvall, you'd mentioned last week. Matt Chapman had a really good week. Vlad, obviously. Luis Robert had 4 homers this week. So Brian Reynolds, we talked about
again.
him too, so.
Yeah.
Matt Olson just hit the hardest home run hit in the season so far tonight, too, at 119 miles per hour.
Listen, you had a brave segment earlier, all right? You stop it.
Well, he's also in the top 6, and we were talking about players of the week. He's on the top 6 for WAR this week, so
yeah,
he's worth
good.
mentioning. Yep.
Doesn't count.
Bryce Elder has a 0 ERA in 2 starts this week as well. There you go. Another
I'm not
brave.
going to count. Yeah. I mean, it was the Reds and the Cardinals, so I'm not.
Yeah, 2 weak teams. That's a definitely
exactly.
All right, this thing has gone off the rails here. We have what this. But anyways, anything else you guys want to wrap up on just before we end this?
Baseball freaking rules, man. What a night.
Yeah, what an insane day so far.
It's been a fun season so far. I'm excited to see maybe some guys settle in a little bit who are still kind of adjusting. I mean, we've seen some of these guys have so many walks and, stuff. I'm thinking maybe some of the pitch clock adjustments will help some of that. But, man, it's been a fun season so far. It's been really good to see.
We'll also have to see if the ball is different. We've had a juiced ball in 2021. Last year we had the ball that was kind of de-juiced, except for Aaron Judge. So I would say, we're definitely too early on, but the offense does look like it's up from both, I think, the shift ban and from maybe another change to the ball.
Yeah, it's been a fun season. Tonight's been incredibly fun, even as we're trying to record this and everything's happening. But it's been a fun season so far. I can't wait to, be in person there on Friday and see all the changes for myself. One thing I did notice when they did the McCutchen thing, and just because the reason I'm going is Cody's first game back in Dodger Stadium there, but shout out to the umpire in Pittsburgh that gave Andrew McCutchen the actual time to get his reception from the Pittsburgh fans in the first home game and not calling the pitch clock violation on him or anything. That was incredibly. I was worried about those little moments if they were going to get lost here or there. I don't know if that's how it's going to be handled most of the time, but that was a very special moment that I am happy to see that maybe they give a little bit of leeway in certain instances for certain things.
I think they will. I wouldn't believe that that's the kind of thing that wouldn't, that would be taken away from this. Everybody's standing up and clapping in the stadium, right? That's part of it. And I mean, shoot, if the pitcher, doesn't get on the rubber or something, it don't matter because they can't start the clock until everybody, the pitcher's on the rubber. So
they have
theory,
the 30-second
just
clock.
Stays off the rubber, and then there you go, right? So
no, they still have the 30-second clock, and the batter still has to be in the box at 8 seconds.
Yeah, I mean,
so you still do have that.
Yeah, but everybody knows what's going on. So I'm sure Cody will get a good standing O, and you got to be the loudest one for us. All right, you got to cheer for 2 people.
Listen, all right. Listen. One thing also, we've seen umpires take a lot of offense to things this year, even more than usual.
Hooray!
Yeah, I know Austin Barnes.
Podcast.
Austin Barnes got thrown out while catching the other day because he told the umpire, "Come on, man, you got to give us something here."
Yeah,
and
JT Realmuto, same thing, and that was in spring training. And then Manny Machado, Castellanos.
Yeah, there's been a lot of those.
The Phillies are probably paying the umpires to throw Castellanos out.
He's been fine. He hasn't been the problem, that's for sure.
Well, anyways, but yeah, what a way that we just went off the rails at the end of this episode.
That's how it works.
But, yeah, we keep it structured, and then in the end, we just go all over the place. Welcome to what our everyday chats look like, guys. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 121 of the Bat Flip Podcast, and we will catch you guys back next week.